भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यम् भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ओम शांति शांति शांति। Namaskar my dear friends, this is video number 7 on the clarification of doubts about self-inquiry by Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharshi. This video starts with question answer. Disciple puts a question. Since breath control leads only to quiescence of the mind, manolaya, and not to its destruction, manonasha, how can it be said that breath control is the means for inquiry which aims at the destruction of mind? Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi replies, the scriptures teach the means for gaining self-realization in two modes. As the yoga with 8 limbs, Ashtanga Yoga, and as knowledge with 8 limbs, Ashtanga Jnana, by regulation of breath, pranayama, or by absolute retention thereof, Kevala Kumbhaka, which is one of the limbs of yoga, the mind gets controlled without leaving the mind at that. If one practices the further discipline such as withdrawal of the mind from external objects, pratyahara, then at the end self-realization, which is the fruit of inquiry, will surely be gained. So long as the mind has not been made to rest in the heart, either through absolute retention, Kevala Kumbhaka, or through inquiry, Rechka, Purka, etc., are needed. Hence, the pranayama of yoga is to be practiced during training, and the other pranayama may be practiced always. Thus, both may be practiced. It is enough if the yogic pranayama is practiced till skill is gained in absolute retention. Ramana. Self-inquiry versus other means of quieting the mind, meditation. Disciple. What is the difference between meditation and self-inquiry? Master. Meditation is possible only if the ego is retained. There is the ego and the object meditated upon. This method is indirect. However, if we seek the ego source, the ego disappears and what remains is the self. This method is the direct one. Question. On another occasion, what is the difference between meditation and vichara? Maharshi replies, meditation can be upon an object, external or otherwise. Thus, subject and object differ. In vichara, both subject and object are the same, the self. Enquiry consists in retaining the mind in the self. Meditation consists in thinking that one's self is Brahma, existence, consciousness, bliss. Who is the meditator? Ask the question first. Remain as the meditator. There is no need to meditate. Meditation is one approach that will drive away other thoughts. The one thought of God will dominate others. That is concentration. The object of meditation is thus the same as that of vichara. The only inquiry leading to self-realization is seeking the source of the I with inturned mind and without uttering the word I. Meditation on I am not this, I am that may be an aid to the inquiry, but it cannot be the inquiry. Meditation should be on the self. Everyone knows I am. Who is the I? It will be neither within nor without, neither on the right nor the left. I am. That's all. The heart is the center from which everything springs. Because you now see the world, the body, etc., it is said that there is a center for them called the heart. But when actually in it, the heart is neither in the center nor at the circumference, as then there is nothing else. The experience of self is possible only for the mind that has become subtle and unmoving as a result of prolonged meditation. He who is thus endowed with a mind that has become subtle and who has the experience of the self is called a Jivan Mukta, All kinds of thoughts arise in meditation. That is only right. For what lies hidden in you is brought out. Unless it rises up, how can it be destroyed? Thoughts rise up spontaneously, as it were, but only to be extinguished in due course, thus strengthening the mind. The bliss of Brahma will not become manifest owing to the mere immobility of the inner organ. It will become manifest only through the concept of the form of Brahma, Brahmakara Virati, since this will arise only through reflection, Chintana on the meaning of the Vedanta text, and since unsteadiness will disappear even through this. One who desires to have the bliss of liberation while alive has to reflect on the meaning of Vedanta text only and need not meditate, do upasana. The purport of prescribing meditation on the Parnava is this. The Parnava is Omkara consisting of 3.5 matras, which A, U, M and Ardha matra. Of these, A stands for the waking state, Visvajiva and the gross body. U stands for the dream state, Tejasa Jiva and the subtle body. M stands for the sleep state, Prajna Jiva and the causal body. The Ardha Matra represents the Turiya, which is the self or I nature, and what is beyond that is the state of Turiyatita or pure bliss. The fourth state, which is the state of I nature, was referring to it in the section on meditation, Dhyana. This has been variously described as of the nature of a matra, which includes the three matras A, U, and M, as monakshra, silence syllable, as ajapa, as muttering without muttering, and as the Advaita mantra, which is the essence of all mantras such as Panchakshara. In order to get at this true significance, one should meditate on the Parnava. This is meditation which is of the nature of devotion, consisting in reflection on the truth of the self. The fruition of this process is samadhi, which yields release, which is the state of unsurpassed bliss. The revered gurus also have said that release is to be gained only by devotion, which is of the nature of reflection on the truth of the self. A. The purport of teaching that one should cultivate the idea that one is not different from the self. Luminous reality is this. Scripture defines meditation in these words: in the middle of the eight-petaled heart lotus, which is of the nature of all and which is referred to as Kailasa, Vaikuntha, and Paramapada, there is the reality which is of the size of the thumb, which is dazzling like lightning and which shines like a flame. By meditating on it, a person gains immortality. From this, we should know that by such meditation, one avoids the defects of number one, the thought of difference of the form, I am different and that is different. Number two, meditation on what is limited. Number three, the idea that the real is limited. Number four, that is confined to one place. B. The purport of teaching that one should meditate with the I am he thought is this. Saham, Soham. Sa the supreme self, Aham the self, that is manifest as I. The Jiva, which is the Shiva Linga, resides in the heart lotus, which is its seat situated in the body, which is the city of Brahma. The mind, which is of the nature of egoity, goes outward, identifying itself with the body, etc. Now the mind should be resolved in the heart, that is the I sense that is placed in the body, etc. should be got rid of. When thus one inquires, who am I, remaining undisturbed in that state, the self-nature becomes manifest in a subtle manner as I. That self-nature is all and yet none and is manifest as the Supreme Self everywhere without the distinction of inner and outer. that shines like a flame as was stated above, signifying the truth I am Brahma. If without meditating on that as being identical with oneself, one imagines it to be different, ignorance will not leave. Hence, the identity meditation is prescribed. If one meditates If one meditates for a long time without disturbance on the self ceaselessly with the I am he thought, which is the technique of reflection on the self, the darkness of ignorance which is in the heart, and all the impediments which are but the effects of ignorance will be removed, and the plenary wisdom will be gained. Thus, realizing the reality in the heart cave, which is in the city of Burma, which the body is the same as realizing the all perfect God. In the city with 9 gates, which is the body, the wise one resides at ease. The body is the temple, the Jiva is God Shiva. If one worships him with the I am he thought, one will gain release. The body, which consists of the 5 seats, is the cave. The supreme that resides there is the Lord of the cave. Thus the scriptures declare. Since the self is the reality of all the gods, the meditation on the self, which is oneself, is the greatest of all meditations. All other meditations are included in this. It is for gaining this that the other meditations are prescribed. So, if this is gained, the others are not necessary. Knowing one's self is knowing God. Without knowing one's self that meditates, imagining that there is a deity which is different and meditating on it is compared by the great ones to the act of measuring with one's foot one's own shadow, and to the search for a trivial conch after throwing away a priceless gem that is already in one's possession. The self is self-luminous, without darkness and light, and is the reality which is self-manifest. Therefore, one should not think of it as this or that. The very thought of thinking will end in bondage. The purport of meditation on the self is to make the mind take the form of the self. In the middle of the heart cave, the pure Brahma is directly manifest as the self in the form I. Can there be greater ignorance than to think of it in manifold ways without knowing it as aforementioned? Meditation is abiding as one's self without swerving in any way from one's real nature and without feeling that one is meditating, as one is not in the least conscious of the different state, waking, dreaming, etc. In this condition, the sleep noticeable here is also regarded as dhyana. The difference between dhyana and samadhi is that dhyana is achieved through deliberate mental effort. In samadhi, there is no such effort. Only if the thought I am the body occurs will the meditation I am not this, I am that help one to abide as that. Why should we forever be thinking I am that? Is it necessary for man to go on thinking I am a man? Are we not always that? Ramana Maharshi. Although the scriptures proclaim, thou art that, it is only a sign of weakness of mind to meditate, I am that, not this, because you are eternally that. What has to be done is to investigate what one really is and remain that. The only inquiry leading to self-realization is seeking the source of the I with interned mind and without uttering the word I. Meditation on I am not this, I am that may be an aid to the inquiry, but it cannot be the inquiry. Meditation needs effort. Jnanam is effortless. Meditation can be done or not done or wrongly done. Jnanam is not so. Meditation is described as Kartra Tantra, as doer Jovan. Jnanam is Vastu Tantra, the supreme Jovan. Supplementary practices. Of all the restrictive rules that relating to the taking of sattvic food in moderate quantities is the best. By observing this rule, the sattvic quality of mind will increase and that will be helpful to self-inquiry. Food affects the mind. The right food makes it more sattvic for the practice of any yoga. Vegetarianism is absolutely necessary. Habit is only adjustment to the environment. It is the mind that matters. The fact is that the mind has been trained to think certain foods tasty. Nourishment may be obtained from vegetarian food no less than from flesh, but the realized person's mind is not influenced by the food eaten. However, get accustomed to vegetarianism gradually. You must do it with a calm mind. Mental calmness is essential, Ramana Maharshi. The rules of conduct for a student are moderation in food, moderation in sleep, and moderation in speech. The contribution of Sri Ramana Maharshi. I am that Brahma which is bliss, which is eternal, effulgent, all pervasive, the substratum of names and forms, which is not cognized by the impure intellect, but is cognized by the pure intellect, stainless and boundless. Though through the potent grace of Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi, the path of self-inquiry was brought within the competence of men and women of this age, was indeed fashioned into a new path that can be followed anonymously in the conditions of the modern world with no forms of ritual, nothing to distinguish a person outwardly from the world wherein he moves. The task performed by Bhagwan Sri Ramana was to reopen the direct path of self-inquiry which has become too arduous for our spiritual dark age. This path with its theoretical basis of Advaita stands so to speak at the source from which the various religions diverge and can therefore be approached from any side. Whether there are many or few who take it is not the question, only that it has been made open in itself, but for the grace of Bhagwan, it would be the most inaccessible to modern man on account of its very simplicity and directness. And yet, it is the most accessible and in many cases the only accessible path from the contingent point of view, since because of its very directness, it requires no ritual or forms of worship, no priesthood or congregation, no outer signs or special observances, but can be practiced in the workshop or kitchen or city office as well as in the monastery or hermitage. In the same impersonal way, a man can attend to all the affairs of life knowing that he, the real self, is unaffected by them, and every attack of greed, anger, or desire can be dispelled by vichara. It must be dispelled because it is no use repeating that one is the self and acting as though one were the ego, real, even partial awareness of the self, weakness, egotism. Egotism, whether expressed as vanity, greed, or desire, is a proof that recognition of the self is merely mental. This means that in adapting an ancient path to modern conditions, Bhagwan has in effect created a new path. The ancient path of self-inquiry was pure Jnana Marga to be followed by the recluse in silence and solitude, withdrawn from the outer world. Bhagwan has made it a path to be followed, invisible in the world in the conditions of modern life. Whosoever submits to him will be borne up and never forsaken. God and Guru are not really different. They are identical. He who has earned the grace of the Guru will undoubtedly be saved and never forsaken, just as the prey that has fallen into the tiger's jaws will never be allowed to escape. The disciple, for his part, should unswervingly follow the path shown by the master. So thank you for watching this video. Please like, comment and share the video and subscribe the channel. Thanks. Namaskar, my dear friends.